and welcome to the podcast that explores the Heartland's entertainment industry. I'm Brian.
And I'm Neil.
And we are here again at Tower Studios. I almost said Tower Theater, but that's downstairs. And yeah,
we're here making beautiful
me and my
stuff.
flawless
Great
intros, man.
Every single time, man.
I'm just killing it.
1,000.
I know.
But I mean, look at it, man. Look at how lit we are.
Dude,
look at the Okie Show sign.
I know. We're so lit.
Your production value is.
It's every episode this new season is just getting better. By the time we get to the end of the season, it's going to be great.
We're going to have
We're gonna be on HBO.
People watching us.
Gonna get the sound fixed.
It's gonna. I know it's gonna be freaking perfect. We're gonna by the end of season 3, episode 75. This ship is gonna be a well-oiled machine.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
absolutely. Having a great time every single time.
Oh man. So I think the reason why I'm still kind of hazy is because I've been driving literally all day.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because I've been working with the wonderful Joe Exotic today.
Heck yeah. One of Oklahoma's treasures.
Yeah.
Freaking okay. So for anyone who is listening that has no idea who Joe Exotic is, be thankful.
No.
But I don't know. Do you guys want to? Y'all should describe. Can we do an explanation of
Joe Exotic?
Can we play a little improv game right off the bat of just describe Joe Exotic one word at a time?
Yes.
Okay. So, and we're gonna tell a story about Joe Exotic. So.
Oh my God.
Joe.
Oh, exotic. I
The
never.
end.
Was this
No, that was good. One word story.
Yeah, one word story.
One word story?
Yeah. So Joe.
Exotic.
Condoms.
Are we supposed to say a sentence or no? Mullet.
Tigers.
Safari.
Stolen.
Oh, Tigernado.
Oh, I think that was the other safari.
Oh, Neil doesn't know about Tigernado. Boy, this rabbit hole is getting deeper
got
and
to.
deeper and
Tigernado?
deeper.
What are you talking about,
know
bro?
about Tiger
Okay.
I lived in Tigernado. That's like a block from my house.
Yeah,
man.
yours might be
Oh my
the
God,
other
for real?
Tiger safari.
Oh,
it
dude.
wasn't his.
This whole episode, if we keep going down this road, this is just going to be one giant inside joke.
Yeah.
Unless you live in Oklahoma City or
can't escape.
Wynnewood, you're not going to know what the hell is going on. So yeah, I've been having to work with Joe Exotic. So my day started. This was day 1 on this documentary that I've been working on. I'm going to be on for the next 3 days. So day 1, I don't find out what time I leave or where I'm going until midnight. I'm like, what's going on?
Cool.
You know, the freelance world, dear listeners.
Lordy.
Is so often you feel kind of like an assassin. You're like, where's my next assignment? Okay, I got the drop point. I'm moving out at 0200.
Put on all black.
Yeah.
And you got a shotgun.
And I got a shotgun, and I do have it in a case, and I got to assemble it all. So it kind of feels like that.
Yeah.
So we head out to Wynnewood, and these people, they flew in from New York, and we're on the road. And so Wynnewood's like an hour from Oklahoma City. So we get all the way down there, and I'm following the main, point car
To the Tiger Safari.
to the Tiger Safari. We turn into the Tiger Safari. They keep turning. Now they're going past me. Now we're going back to Oklahoma City. And I'm like, maybe they think that they took a wrong turn. So I'm just going to follow them. Well, 30 minutes later, we're still heading towards Oklahoma City. So I call them and they're like, oh yeah, we forgot to let you know. So Joe apparently doesn't live there anymore.
Wow.
So
but
he's
they
in
needed
Oklahoma
to drive
City.
down there to figure that out?
Yeah, Joe couldn't clue you in until you're there. So we drive all the way back to Oklahoma City. Then he's like, well, I got to drop off these cats over in Broken Arrow. So, and in their brain, they're like, okay, so we're just going to take a skip over there and then we're going to start shooting. Broken Arrow is 2 hours away. So now we're 4 hours into the drive and it's not in Broken Arrow. It's in a secret tiger safari that's 30 miles off of Broken Arrow. So now I'm going into the remains of Jurassic Park. That's what it feels like. Is that we're just going deeper and deeper into the bowels of Oklahoma, following Joe freaking Exotic with his Joe Exotic condoms and his tigers, and I'm running for governor of 2019 or whatever it
I'm
is.
voting for him.
He runs for
And, like,
president frequently.
Yeah, and so like we get into this gated area and everything, and it straight up looks like Jurassic Park, dude. There's like massive fences everywhere. It's not the Tiger Safari, which is like out and very, proud of its facility and everything. This is like the backwoods secret.
hidden.
This is Esna Sorna.
Yeah.
Isla Sorna. Yeah.
Wow.
Anybody taking a deep dive into the Jurassic Park world? Yeah, so this is like this is where they harvest the tigers. This is where they build the tigers before they take them off into the actual main attraction area.
This is where the lion and the tiger mate to make the liger.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like we
baby
arrive and
tigers.
I'm welcomed by a giant freaking tiger, and there's a sign that's like carnivores, please do not smoke and all this kind of stuff. And like there's in their enclosures, which it's his facility. They're straight up cages.
Yeah.
But they're big ass cages, like with huge. And the reason he was there was to add more to the top of the fence.
Huge.
Add more to the top of the fence. That's like already 30 feet high. Are these mutant tigers with wings? What's happening?
Not
Can they
wider.
climb?
No, not wider.
No.
Higher.
Bro, they're prepping for tornadoes. like, they know. They're like, look, we've been through this before. Like,
Fool me once.
we're not going to have 5 movies made about us. Right? Like,
Just
this
one.
isn't Sharknado.
Yeah, so Joe is an eccentric guy. He's a really, really nice guy, but he's a very eccentric dude. And that's kind of the perfect segue into today's topic, which is we're going to be talking about creeps and crazies
Creeps and
in
crazies.
the entertainment industry.
I'm ready for Joe the Exotic to be in the
why
in the
isn't he?
industry.
Why isn't he an actor?
I
He's
am
already
a little
exotic.
surprised that he isn't, honestly.
I mean,
be a
he's so
director.
busy running for governor and president.
Yeah.
He's got other plans.
Yeah.
Philanthropist with tigers.
But so today we're talking about creeps and crazies, which in the entertainment industry, I feel like is kind of a rampant kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like first let's actually introduce you guys to the actual show,
Yes,
because
who are we?
people who are listening and are not watching on YouTube, they're probably wondering, who are these wonderful ladies that have been talking, but we don't know who they are. Who are these people? So going down the line, we have makeup artist extraordinaire, Toni Marlo.
Hi.
And well, I'll let you guys, you tell us your accolades, and then we'll go right down the line.
My accolades.
Yes, your accolades, please.
I paint faces. And
Tiger faces?
yep. I'll do tiger face.
Perfect.
Whatever pays the bills, man.
Yeah.
So
Got to start somewhere, right?
Right. So so I work in film and production and commercial. And when I'm not doing that, I have a bridal hair and makeup boutique called Marlo House. So I have like these 2 lives, and one of them is really frilly and lots of pink and like very girly, and we go to weddings, and we have a dress code, and we're very polished team that comes on and makes women happy for their big day. Then my other life is showing up in weird fields with
Usually lots
Brian,
of weird
looking for
Yeah.
tomatoes, powdering
Joe
greasy guys
Exotic.
like Joe Exotic, wearing camping gear and like around bugs, and and so that's what I do. And I need both in my life to stay sane. If I
Yeah.
don't have both like
It's a good balance.
avenues, absolutely. And that's what I do.
So on one
Accolades, I
side
don't
you
know.
have Bridezilla, and then on the other side you have possibly Godzilla.
Yes.
See what I did there?
Nice.
Zing.
Tying it in. Yeah. Brian
So I guess I
Yeah.
like to work with little crazies on both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
Ooh,
keeps me
that-
sane.
for
Yeah.
real.
So next we have Britni Harris,
Yes.
and you do all sorts of crazy stuff.
I do. I wear multiple hats. I mostly work in the documentary world, so I'm interacting with daily crazies that are real.
Real crazy.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting, but most of them are really wonderful. I'm a cinematographer as well, and I just have my own little production company. I've worked on features and music videos and all that kind of stuff, but I kind of have my documentary little home.
Nice. Well, and you guys just won a best short film, right?
Yes, we won Best Oklahoma Short about a documentary called Gray Matter, which is about the female incarceration situation we have in
Yeah.
Oklahoma. We're number
It was
1.
awesome. It was really good, by the way.
Thank you.
It was really good.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which just I want to go ahead and touch where we can find that before I forget about it, because it's such an important topic.
So Poetic Justice has a website. Gray Matter also has a Facebook page. We're trying to screen the movie in all counties of Oklahoma
Nice.
for the election in November.
Good call.
So that's kind of what we're hoping. So if you can help, let us know.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
Sweet.
And then Alexandra Bohannon,
That's me.
other podcaster extraordinaire.
Yeah. So my name is Alexandra Bohannon. I help do a podcast on the cinematropolis.com, Cinematic Schematic. I talk about film scores. I also have worked in production before, production coordination, unit production manager, assistant production coordinator, second AD, like that kind of nuts and bolts and managing it and make sure it doesn't catch on fire. And
You're
gets
the
on a
magical
slide.
fairy behind all the magic that happens on set.
Calms down the crazies.
Calms down the crazies, yeah.
That's
But
it.
currently I work in advertising. There's still different...
That's a different kind of crazy, man.
It is
Freaking
very
clients.
much so. But yeah, so...
Can we have it both bigger and smaller?
Oh my f***ing God.
Clients from hell. I think we can all relate to the crazies of clients.
The deep relations there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we're talking about crazies and creeps in the entertainment industry, and I feel like we all have some kind of story. And like when we're talking about creeps and crazies, what kind of a person are we talking about? Britni, I don't know why I'm looking at you directly.
It's because she just did a documentary from prison.
Oh well, yeah.
As a documentary filmmaker, I'm going into homes, I'm going into all these different scenarios where I'm dealing with real people and their lives, and they're all kind of quirky. Like, I feel like filmmakers, we try to find the quirky ones because they have an interesting story, but I think the crazy and creeps are the ones that aren't welcoming, that aren't giving you a positive idea about yourself or the situation. But positive creeps and crazies are the ones that are just themselves and respect everyone's views and, space.
I mean, you're a good balance, because we were just talking about how why does the film industry draw in creeps and crazies, but as someone that does documentaries, you're basically saying...
You're going to them.
Oh, no, it's everywhere. And these people aren't in film. So I think the moral of the story is we're all a little crazy.
Yeah.
In every industry.
But I think it's, knowing what crazy is and what over the line is.
Yeah. The lines.
Because I'm a weirdo. Like, I will own that for sure. But
I think in this industry, it's about reading a room, and you have to definitely trust your gut.
Totally.
That's where it's at.
Some of the stories that I've that are probably the most painful, like from my academic career, from big political policy stuff, and from the film industry, usually there's a power imbalance at play. So usually one of the stories I think about when I think of like this specific kind of topic is he was a production designer, and these were like PAs in college.
Right.
So that's that kind of power imbalance there.
Yeah. You got to earn your way in.
Right. That kind of
Which you do.
You do.
But then...
Pay your dues.
Right. Manipulative, line crossing.
Yeah.
Right. All of that don't come back at the end of the show kind of a thing to the guy.
Yeah.
I think that, the film industry has a lot of egos in play.
Yes.
I think that's something that I'm learning more and more is there's so many egos out there, and you can use your ego to be this positive thing, like where it's this positivity about you and how you can do better. But there's a lot of egos out there that are there to put people down.
With insecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that that plays a huge role in it, is not having respect for the ones that are beneath you that you once actually were, unless you just jumped right to the top, which
that happens.
Yeah.
I think that makes people even more insecure because you didn't earn your keep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
like, you don't know what 10-1 means.
Yeah, you don't really know what's going on.
The dangerous thing about that is like you were talking about PAs, is like when you're in that scenario, and I'm sure we all were back in the days doing internships and working for free, trying to get to where we want to be. Like, you have that mentality of like, I will do anything it takes to succeed.
Yeah.
But, sometimes that can take you places where you don't necessarily want to be, but you're there because you think that this person has complete control over your career.
Right.
Which in a lot of cases, they make you feel that way.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Like you said, like with an ego, but
Yeah.
You just gotta sniff those situations out.
Yeah.
That's hard because you don't want to be a diva or be too weak early on, and you got to pay your dues. And a lot of times you have to almost do the really hard things. And I still do this now. And being in films, I started filming like 2010, 2011, and I'll still find myself in situations that are maybe the most unsafe or just crappy situations. And I'll think to myself, let me just get through it and feel it out. And then at the end, I'll be like, never again. But then I start creating these tallies in my head. So then the next time that situation comes around, then I'm one of those that's like really transparent. And I'll say it right to the producer. So I've been in this situation 3 or 4 times. People are going to get hurt or this is not going to work out. But I feel like I had to almost personally go through it to say, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And you can't do that to anybody
like,
else, or you can't do that to a PA or something.
Yeah.
But I have to actually do it.
Well, and I feel like there's a difference between like a shit show, which I feel like we've all been on a shit show.
Word.
And that's just poor planning that, snowballs into a shit show.
Like Winniewood to Broken.
Yeah, like to my experience today and what's probably going to be tomorrow and Wednesday.
Go back to
Paycheck,
Winniewood and
Yeah.
U-turn and head to Texas, Amarillo,
Yeah.
and then back up to Winniewood.
Yeah.
Thank God it just got
Get mileage.
Oh yeah, just
Better.
it's all tax write-offs, man, just dollar signs.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between a shit show and then just a cluster.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree.
It's true.
Where it's like you're not being taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
People aren't getting fed.
Yeah.
People are going into grace without even calling it, and then going in, 2 or
Right.
3 hours into grace. And when I say grace, to those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, like there is a rule that you have a call time, like say 9 a.m., and then you have 6 hours, and then you break for lunch.
Yeah.
And 6 hours doesn't seem like a long time, but that's just long enough for you to go a little insane with hunger.
Just
So when
to
you go into
sneeze.
grace, and nobody even asks if you can go into grace, you're ready to murder someone.
Okay, but when people ask anyway, who says no?
Who says no?
Because if you say no, then you're the jerk that just said
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
no. So
I'm hungry.
the part about being offended that people don't ask, it's like I get it, but the other part's like, we can't say no. I don't. What am
Yeah.
I supposed
But
to
yeah,
do?
I mean,
we're
that's-
here. We're doing it.
We're here, right? Like you're in the
Yeah.
scene, everything's set up, lights are going. Like, just do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as long as they're not
Yeah.
like changing camera positions, I'm cool with it. Like doing
Well, and
multiple
that's-
takes and
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I've only been on one scenario where we moved into grace, and then they wanted to start up a whole new scene. And luckily, it was Stacey Mize who was the first AC on that, and she straight up called it, "Nope, we're going to lunch." I've never seen a camera operator do that before.
Yeah.
But she f***ing did it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to f*** around with
She's
Stacey Mize,
such
I'll
a
tell you that.
badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She gave me the best advice, I think, as a woman in the film industry trying to be in the camera department.
Yeah, that's super sausage
It's
fest.
like-
Yeah.
It is
Boys club.
not, yeah, it's a boys club and it's super hard. And I remember I worked with her. I was working at Brothers and Company and she was the AC on everything we did. And I was doing paperwork because that was my role apparently. And I went over to her and I was like, I really admire you because you're a woman in the film, like in the camera department. I always wanted to do that. And she's like, girl, drop those papers and get over here. Like,
Yeah.
if you can get any time away from like doing any kind of paperwork, like come here. And she told me, she was like, you are going to have to work 3 times, twice as hard as anyone on set.
Yeah.
Because you're the camera department and you have to lift things and you have to glug things and you have to do it better
Yeah.
because you don't have.
You know what I love about Stacey Mize is that, like, this is a camera operator that is now working with SNL on their digital shorts and stuff like that. And she started right here in Oklahoma. So that says something right there. The dream. You can do it.
Yeah.
You can freaking do it.
But she worked so.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
dude.
I never think that anything was handed to her.
Oh, no, not at all. Well, but the cool thing is, I don't like, and it dawned on me like maybe a year ago that that girl trained most of our, almost like 90% of our now like
Camera
A-list
ops. Yeah.
camera ops.
Yeah.
train me, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Southern Christmas.
And she worked your ass off, man.
Yeah, dude. Almost
So-
got fired multiple times.
Congratulations,
It's
Neil.
okay though. I didn't drop a lens, so I made it through.
Yeah.
That is like the entry level.
Yeah.
I will say this, going back to the situation that she shut down for Grace.
Yeah.
Is if she was in any other situation and wasn't in her hometown, because I was on that film and wasn't in her own hometown with friends, she would have been completely just razzed and berated for that from the producers because they didn't care. But if it weren't for she did a little bit, and they gave her a lot of shit for it in their own like condescending, passive aggressive way.
Yeah.
But she had an entire crew that backed her up, and if she didn't, if she was just only a few friends or was from out of town, it would have been probably a lot harder. She probably wouldn't be rated. Like she would have been disrespected for doing what she had been doing.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's what happened on another movie that came through later on, and she would not take their shit either, and they straight up fired her.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
because she didn't have. There wasn't just enough locals. It wasn't small enough. Like that could rally around her.
Yeah, like it was an interesting movie because they hired a bunch of locals and then they fired the majority of those locals and hired a bunch of people from Georgia and brought them in so they could pay their per diem and all that kind of stuff, so they could do the exact same job at the same level of quality as the Oklahoma. I don't understand. I don't know.
We could do that. We
I
could
just
do
love
those.
movies coming in and
I feel
locals.
like shit shows could be a whole episode on its own.
God,
For
we
sure.
should.
We could talk about that for days.
Oh my
It's
God.
The sad part,
so
though,
entertaining.
and it is entertaining. If you're in the business, but what I've learned is, so I'm on a couple of Facebook groups, like film memes and stuff. And if you notice, though, the entire group is full of complaining.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
I just joined an Instagram group called Bad Crafty, where you can email photos. Of
But
the
it
bad
exists.
crafty, and then you put it on Instagram.
Oh my
but at a certain point, I have to go, man. Like, if I
These
just
guys are kinda
continue to
dicks.
feed like my mind with all of the negative stories, you're like,
Yeah.
why the hell do we do this?
Yeah.
It's all
'Cause
about
we don't-
the
we don't-
P.M.A, brother.
The P.M.A.
Mindset, attitude.
I was like, PMS? What?
No, right?
good,
P.M.A. You guys never heard that?
I tell you
heard of
that,
it now.
that he said that to Trace Adkins, and the cynical Trace Adkins goes, "Oh shit, get out of here with that! Get out of here with that mental, the positive mental shit."
That's great.
You couldn't handle me. Couldn't handle me.
And he'll just laugh.
Get
He's
on
like,
my level, Trace
"All right, dude."
Atkins.
Exactly.
Yeah, he just like, he's like, "All right, dude, cool, I'm out."
You can get glad in the same pants you got mad. So I mean, like, it was cool though.
No, he
Oh my
was really
God.
cool. But yeah, we're
Holy
sitting at
moly.
lunch. And Neil comes over and sits down next to Trace and I. And Trace is like, "Oh man, you can't come over here with this positive shit.
Too happy. Too happy.
Yeah.
You're too happy."
Yeah.
But he was really nice. But it was like,
Yeah.
it was one of those true moments
Man,
that Neil's
yeah,
like,
that
"Whatever,
was-
dude, I'm out."
Deal out.
And like, see, that's a perfect example of a film
Yeah.
that we got to work on. That was just like, if every movie worked how that movie worked,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
like it was amazing. The crew
Yeah.
was treated great. Actors had plenty of time to get where they needed to be. Like, and there were a lot of times. There were some times.
Says the
where,
makeup gal.
Yeah, there were some times where like we did like work a little longer and like put in some overtime.
Yeah, I'm into
Like
that though.
especially on the last day.
Do it.
But
Golden
at
hour,
least
baby.
we were
Dude,
treated
it was all
fairly.
right because on the last day we had lobster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
What the
That's what I'm
Right?
saying. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
You can't bitch when you've got lobster
Lobster.
for dinner.
Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, all right. Jeez, you gotta ruin a good thing.
Well, that scenario though is just. I feel like it's those are a dime a dozen. You know
Right.
what I mean? Where a lot
don't
of
get
movies
those.
that we get to work on are perfect avenues for people who are maybe creepy or maybe dangerous who get that who are like, I'm a filmmaker, and it's like, well, are you really, man?
Yeah.
Or is this
Oh,
your
yeah.
first movie? Like,
Right.
Oh, dude, and
And
we've
those
worked
films are
on
good for that.
so many people's first movies.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
all the
in
time.
Oklahoma that's what we do here.
It's
Yeah.
first time director.
first time director.
It's first time director camp.
It is.
Yeah.
For features.
And they have so much money, and they just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Or they have no money
So-
and they don't realize what that really means. And then we just kind of carry them like, we got you.
Yeah.
We'll just float you along this
And we
process.
don't get any credit either.
Yeah. So come see the John Schmackenflurb movie.
Right.
That's gonna be a great
it's going to be on
documentary.
Amazon.
Yeah.
I really think it's
shortly.
going to be great.
So, okay, now we've talked a little bit about the crazies.
Creep time.
Did anybody have any creep stories?
Creep stories. Who
I
wants
don't
go
want to get
first?
too deep into the creep stories yet.
Well, define creep. Like, what do you mean? Give
Do
me
we
the
have
little-
different definitions of
Yeah.
creep?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm a dude, so I
we
can't
talking
I
like-
can't chime in on my
Yeah.
own definition of creep.
Like Radiohead creep, or like,
Yeah.
are we talking like like
I'm
like,
okay. So I'll give an example of
Okay.
a creep story. So we were
Do it.
shooting a scene that people were getting intimate,
Okay.
and this guy was the set photographer, not the set photographer that y'all are thinking about. We're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
But this was a young guy who looked like Dwight Schrute's weird son.
Nice.
And like, bless his heart, the kid's got to be like 17, 18. He's young, he's naive, he's never been on a film set at all before. He got hired on as an on-set photographer by his buddy who was the director. And it just so happened that we were shooting a sex scene. So, young Dwight Shrute Jr. had his camera, and like I kept having, as the sound guy, kept having to tell him, like, dude, you don't need to be in there. He's like, well, but I'm here to take pictures. Like, not those kind of pictures. You don't have to be in there. I'm the boom operator. I'm barely in the room.
Right.
Like I'm working with plant mics and stuff. Like,
right.
I don't have to be like looking down the barrel of the gun while they're doing their deed.
Right.
And so like he kept trying to fucking creep in there, and then whenever we weren't rolling, our lead actress, was, she wasn't nude, but she was in her little robe thing, and he kept kind of like hovering around her in that way that you see the guy and you're like, that's a fucking creep.
Gotcha.
So finally I had to go to the first AD and was like, look, Dwight Shrute Jr. won't go away. we're gonna have to send him back to the beat field, or else
like it's not gonna work
it's
out.
gonna be an issue with me. And so they had to boot old, young Shrute.
Young Shrute.
Yeah. Which I like,
to the beach farm.
Creep vibe.
like, I don't know. I don't know how much of a benefit of the doubt you should even give young people, because, like, I will say from the guy's perspective, I will say I'm not making any excuses whatsoever, but I will say that the lizard brain factor can take over from time to time.
Yeah.
If you've lived a very, very sheltered life and all of a sudden boobies, they're nearby, lizard brain could take over.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
I think as women, we need to, as all men and women, we need to understand that, like, we all don't have it figured out, and not everybody is perfectly has perfect social cues.
Yeah.
Right. And
well, especially if you're a socially awkward person in the first place.
yes,
like,
socially awkward first time on set. That would be like a legitimate question. Something that some for you and me be like, oh yeah, you don't take your camera in the nude scene, buddy. But like he might, like, I mean, if he's naive and green, he doesn't know any better.
He also doesn't want to be the guy that was so prude that he wouldn't take photos, and then the director's like, so you didn't get any shots of this,
right?
So he's spinning out a bit.
Yeah, but
when you got multiple people telling you to back off,
then you should back
That's
off.
where the line is crossed. Where it's no longer naive. Now you're either just straight up stupid or you're a creep.
Yeah.
But I
Stupid
don't
and a creep.
think you should ignore it, though. Because of age, because I think that the main problem is education and having that more like open communication about what is comfortable, what's not comfortable, how people feel, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it like
address it, but don't blow it out of proportion,
Right.
And completely bash.
Well, and also and I gotta say, like, from the sound perspective, we are in
You're all up in there.
What could be perceived as compromising situations a lot, because like I have to put mics on women of all sorts of different wardrobe, sometimes scantily clad, sometimes totally modest and that kind of thing, and I have to work around that. And so like learning what perception is, because in my perspective, I think about perception constantly.
That's good.
Like anytime I'm wiring up a girl, if the wardrobe person is not around to do it for me, which normally I will try to find somebody to wire up a female for me. And if she's not, I'll at least try to have a witness on hand. Yeah, and especially if I see somebody bust out a camera because, it's so funny, he's touching your boobies, quote unquote.
No.
We don't around with that stuff, dude. You do not around with that.
It's professional.
I've had set experiences where, like, trying to put a mic on a lady, and it's like, they make jokes and they think it's funny, but like you could possibly be like super embarrassed in the moment because you're just trying to get your job done.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's so funny because look at you. You forget to freely touch her boobies and look how beautiful she is.
Well, and the other thing is, like, we live in a world of social media where, well, a lot of actresses don't.
Yeah.
But the other part that I always worry about, I mean, like, and it's on my brain quite a bit, which is why I kind of like almost don't really wire females much at all anymore.
Oh, wow.
Because, we live in a social media world where it takes one picture and that picture will last forever. And everybody on set can understand the context and understand that, maybe it's awkward and we laugh about it to get over the awkwardness and that kind of thing. The world doesn't know that. The world doesn't see the context. They just see the picture of the guy with his hand up a girl's.
Yeah, but you're like geared up when you're doing like a photo.
I feel like that doesn't even matter.
A photo of you that can be compromised. I mean, you obviously see the stuff that you have like on you, and you have the black like core.
I mean, I feel like maybe laymen, hopefully enough lay people know that enough, but
I don't trust people.
Right.
People are stupid.
And
the general population are stupid.
Right. And that's your right to be protective of your identity and also of your business, because you don't want a reputation of one misheard comment that someone else was maybe saying about what you were doing.
But your business of the sound guy, though.
Exactly. It could damage your reputation, which in this trade is your money. I mean, so
because I have seen it damage a lot of other sound guys.
Really?
Like as especially as you get, to be an older sound guy, an older graying man, and you're still trying to wire people up. Like I've noticed that as you become an older man, people start talking more shit. And and I will be there right next to them and understand the context. And no, he's just an old guy. Yeah. Like he didn't do anything creepy whatsoever. It's just, but the perception,
old man wiring a young girl.
Old girl,
I see.
looking like he's feeling up a girl when he's just trying to put a damn wire on her.
Especially in your department, like another thing that can be scary is kids too. Like,
oh yeah.
Like,
no, I don't touch kids at all.
Yeah.
Mom or dad.
Yeah.
Like,
oh wow.
And like, I've never had to go to a guardian or something like that, but definitely mom or dad.
But most kids, their attire too isn't really anything that is hard to wire. It's pants and a t-shirt.
Well,
sometimes
kind
dresses,
of.
I guess,
a lot
girls.
of dresses, and But then at the same time, like we're talking about
there next year. That's always the given.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna. I guess we can kind of skip ahead because why not? It's my show.
do your rules, my dude.
Well, like, I was wanting to talk about how, like, this industry kind of lends itself to what can be perceived as compromising situations where you don't have time to be super modest. You don't have time to dance around something. You've got to get in there and just do it. No, it is awkward. It's way more awkward if you dance around it. That's why whenever I'm teaching students how to wire people, I always tell them what you're going to do and then just do it. Yeah. Just do it. Don't be like, excuse me, do you mind if I was to walk up to you in a club and be like, excuse me, do you mind if can I get you a drink? You would assume that drink is definitely poisoned.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but if you walk up and be like, I'm going to buy you a drink, you'd be like, I'm drinking that damn drink and it'll be free.
Right. Yeah. And like, I mean, my first time ever on a set was Gilly. I was his sound utility. And so like when he taught me to wire people, like he taught me that exact methodology. And like for me, because like I can understand, because I'm like, oh my God, like I'm a person, I've never met you before, but now I'm about to touch your body a lot. And like how weird that is, like if you think about it. But then if you don't think about it and you say, hey, I'm just going to take this wire and I'm going to put this sticky pad right here, and if you can thread it through your shirt, and like if you're so explicit and like you're already, it's like, I mean, it's kind of like just like active consent in like all relationships where you're an ongoing conversation of what you're doing, what's happening, and you're both agreeing to it. Yeah. And like without being the overhang of like,
do you mind if I could
it's also active consent with people who do this every day. So if you're overly explaining to an actor, which I've seen them do that too. I think even to Brian, we're like, hi, and they're like, hey, they just put their hands up. And
just do me.
Just do right. Because half the time they're talking
in there, man.
They're talking to the director. They're getting last looks from me. Yeah. There's 5 people on them, so they're not really trying to now be distracted by saying, "Oh yes, I'm happy to help." They kind of will put their hands up and then they just look at you.
Do it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, because they don't care.
They don't. Yeah. At that point, like
I'm
at that
about to
level,
be naked in 10 minutes after this scene, so just do your thing.
Yeah.
And you have to get in there, and then you do
and
that's
the thing, and I feel like
it's reading
that
the room, it's feeling it out.
And that's a weird thing that, like, how do you teach feeling a room?
I think
how do you do that?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Read an energy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like the main thing about our job, our industry, is communication. Like we are in constant communication at all times, and I feel like that needs to apply more to like these personal levels, and
but not too much.
Yeah, but
we ain't got time for too much.
Right, exactly. But just being like, are you okay with this? Is this okay? Like with all of that.
Yeah.
And especially like with documentaries, I'm dealing with real people all the time that have no idea what a camera is, what we have to like put a microphone on them. So I have to like be constantly being like, we're going to start this camera and we're going to put this microphone on you so we can hear you. So it's just like over communication.
So you're going over versus film. It's like shorthand.
Yeah.
It's like,
because it's
that's
like
interesting.
Real people that have no idea what you're doing could think something's wrong.
That's
and
interesting.
you're just trying to do your job.
And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of young people listen to this show, which sorry about all the cussing.
How young?
How young, right?
Yeah, I mean, late high school into tech school, mostly tech school. That kind of
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that'd be
They're
all right.
18.
They watch SNL.
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
Wait, what did they swear? HBO.
Yeah,
Game of Thrones.
HBO. We've all watched HBO.
We're warming them up for actual set.
I feel like a lot of young people, whenever they're getting into, when you're talking to students a lot, how many students have y'all gotten to teach? I know you've gotten to teach classes and you've gotten to work with students.
A little bit.
A lot of students are kind of socially awkward.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of
industry,
young
for
filmmakers that kind of have that weird Dwight Shrute kind of vibe.
I feel like everyone's vaguely
They're just still figuring it out. Yeah.
I don't think there's so much emphasis with a lot of this kind of stuff in the education standpoint of like all the technical stuff of like cinematography and all that. But no one ever talks about social skills.
Oh my gosh, you have
Don't be fucking weird when you're trying to make a movie.
Yeah.
And
How
to
do you
see like
teach
that, like as far as social skills, like you're saying, it's like another like perfect way to start on the next conversation, which is like how when you're around a bunch of people and something that is negative that's happening on set, like whether if it's a sex scene or even a director who's talking to somebody in a bad
that
way,
negative?
or I mean,
What'd you say?
He said something negative that's happening, like a sex scene. I said, is that negative?
But what I mean by that is that like you're in a scenario where something is happening.
You
that
obviously
is
have
clearly
never
wrong, and is there going to be people who speak up, or do you continue to do your job and say I'm not worried about it, like I'm doing my thing, I'm going to work on I'm putting the lens on, I'm getting the slate ready.
Yeah.
But
It depends on your position.
Yeah.
If I can answer that question. There are positions where people cross over and that you need to, and that I want to say like stay in your lane. Mm-hmm. And then there's positions that you're the advocate. And I feel like I end up being the advocate a lot because I'm the close and personal one with them a lot, but I even have to dance around it a bit, because then if you're an advocate too much to say an established actor that they know how to handle themselves and you try to mom them when they're not ready to speak up to the proper people, then you are overstepping. So that is probably one of the biggest topics that I don't think you could have a whole segment on that.
Yeah.
How to help but not overhelp, but stay in your lane.
Yeah.
But I also
do your job. It's tricky.
I'm tired of not speaking up. I think that's something that I'm realizing more and more as a filmmaker, as a female in this industry, is like I'm tired of not speaking up and seeing things happen to either myself or to other people. And I totally think that you have to be in your lane, because like when something happened to me, I went to like the AD department, I went to the producer. Like you don't broadcast it because that's also like confidential for them and they have to release it themselves.
Right.
But I think
it's hard.
I think it's a
because I wouldn't want people like like I was saying before we started this, like I let a lot of stuff just kind of roll off. So when I think back on any kind of harassment, I can't really picture an actual time that I really feel harassed. Like I definitely can. Every single project I've been on and every job I've been on pre-film, I've been a textbook sexually harassed. But the word harassment in itself is such an odd word because I never really felt harassed. It was just kind of one of those. One of the, all right, like I've been getting sexually harassed since, we hit puberty as females.
Yeah.
Like
You've never been.
Honestly, it is like no thing. We go to the grocery store and we're getting approached. So, so it's always kind of weird.
You should be grateful, okay? You should be taking it as flattering.
I love being told to smile.
Yeah. You should smile more, right? So with that, I think that if I had a situation where maybe a more sensitive female was seeing me, quote unquote, be harassed, and they did that, what you said, and they tried to help me, I would probably react to them probably much more aggressively or stand off. It's like, stay in your lane, homegirl, I got this.
Yeah.
And so that's the hard part is when do you speak up for people and when do people not? When they're like,
That's
no, I got it. You just made it weird.
I think it's just support. It's
weird.
Boundaries.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. And I think we as women are going to have to refigure that out. We're going to have to teach men what's okay and not okay, because they're just all,
A lot of men honestly don't even know what the to think anymore.
They don't. No.
Like,
you guys are so confused. I'm so sorry.
Is it? Is it? I thank God. I tell her this all the time. I thank God I'm married. I thank God I'm not in that pool anymore, man.
No,
because I don't know what. I don't know.
Wait. Can I tell you, this is the favorite thing that you tell me?
Okay.
We're just public. I like when you're like, think she flirted with me, but I don't really know. I don't think she did. Did she? I don't know. I don't want to think about it. And then I'll be like, okay, tell me the situation. The situation.
Well, she was squeezing my rippling pectorals.
Wow, those biceps
I like
so
that you're like
muscly.
not fully aware. You're just like,
I've never been able to figure it out, man. You could be kissing me on my face and I wouldn't know. Is she flirting? Or is this just a bit?
You're walking down the aisle. Does she like me?
Yeah.
I don't know if she is this happening?
Yeah.
Does Lainey
Riggs?
actually like you, or
I don't
still,
think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
She just likes you for your weenie
For
dogs.
all of the loads of money that I bring
I love
from
it.
my sound guy career.
Sick
Yeah.
cash.
Yeah.
I'm just her sugar daddy.
She's the assertive one for sure, right? She's in on you for sure.
Oh no.
First.
Well, no, she
Definitely bought your first round.
That's the thing, like, even all the way through my dating career. Like, the girl had to make the first move because I never knew what to do. Like, I never knew what signals were what. But, like,
That's so good.
It's a tough world out there.
yeah, I mean, that's what, like, it's a miracle that I'm married. Like, I stumbled into this in the best way possible. Because she had to take me
And
by
how
the
many
reins.
years has
That's
it
a
been?
good question that I have.
We've
for
been
you
married
guys.
for almost 8 years now.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yep. I still don't know if she likes me.
He asks me all the time, do you think Lainey was flirting with me just then? I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
I don't know.
Probably.
Possibly.
I love it.
Okay, so here's a good question that I have for you
All right.
guys. It's just opinions from the ladies. Crew members
Yeah.
dating, hooking up.
Ooh, I got an answer, but I'm not going to
It's a
say
delicate
anything.
one.
Cause like scenarios where people get together,
Yeah.
who like Shelly and Jeremy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they got together and they were meant to be. They're
Yeah.
meant to be. They're married. They have a child, and it's a perfect example of people who are both in the film industry who got together. But then there are the stories of people who literally
Hook
wreck
up.
sets because
They wreck.
they're like, oh my gosh, he's such a blah blah blah.
Oh, gosh.
Maybe,
Oh, she did this and blah blah blah.
yeah. Maybe I'm not clued into the drama, but I was just about to compliment the film community because from what I hear, a lot of people hook up at rap parties, right? And then I'm
Isn't
never
that
really
what
aware of
they're
it. Going back to like, thank God I'm married and I don't like have to even kind of deal with that. But then I'll hear about the next film and like, oh, so-and-so and so-and-so hooked up.
Yeah.
But I never really see like that be drama on set. Do you feel like it's
Yeah.
almost like it's so common that it's just a given that people are going to date so much and then turn around and date the other guy
Yeah.
the next
Yeah.
film, to where it's almost kind of relaxed, or is it not? Maybe that's just my perception.
Well,
I mean,
I
I'm
think
in the
the answer is
production
simple.
office. There's like 3 of us
just
in
don't
here.
care.
We're just like,
because I'll hear about it.
I think the answer
little
is
gossip
simple.
all the time, and I'll be like, "Oh, they
We're
did?
all
They dated for
sociopaths.
2 years. Just we don't care.
I think it just
We just
depends
don't
on
care.
the person.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm dating a guy and we work together all the time. He's like my creative partner.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
perfect.
on
I always, this is another reason why I'm thankful that I'm married, because my dad, this is my favorite word of advice that my dad ever gave me. And this applies to so many different things. He always told me, don't shit in your own backyard.
All right.
That's true.
Yeah.
Deep words from Father Gilliland. Don't shit in your own backyard because,
You
awkward.
might want
Yeah.
to barbecue
No,
or
it's-
something.
You might want to barbecue.
Yeah.
And there's a turd.
Yeah,
There's a turd right there.
I would. Yeah,
That's good
like-
stuff.
And like as far as my own experiences, I've worked on plenty of sets where you meet people and you meet extras, and like they're interesting and they want to hang out and stuff like that. But they're, for me at least, like I try to draw the line where it's like, if you would like to date, it would have to be after the movie's finished because we're working together right now.
Yeah.
And I have a professional image that I have to keep.
Yeah.
And I can't look like somebody who just goes and
you-
bangs the extras.
so you definitely.
Things the extras do be.
Yeah, classic Neil, just banging the extras.
So Neil definitely hooks up at the rap parties, is what we're hearing. It's over, girl.
I'll see you on the next one.
Well, okay, so I'm curious what you guys had to say about this, but why do you think, like, we're talking about interpersonal relationships and that kind of thing, and like kind of going back to like specifically the CREEPS and the CRAZIES, like let's talk about extras for just a second.
Oh my
That's a freaking
Different
breeding
flavor.
ground of creeps and crazies. But why does the entertainment industry, the film industry specifically, that's not even true. The music industry is just as bad. But why does this attract creeps and crazies like flies to a turd in your own backyard?
Yeah, I think I can answer that.
Go for
it. My own psychoanalysis. So I think, for one, it's a creative field. So you have people that are natural kind of, creatives. And with any kind of creative field, there's not a lot of rules and guidelines. And you mix self-branding and freelance, which means that everybody has to pave their own way. So with that comes doing anything you can do, like we talked about earlier, to get ahead. And then that's where you get the power dynamics. And so you mix creatives, where there's not a lot of rules how to get to the end of the rainbow, mixed with all the self-branding and stepping over people, and it's who's the greatest. And when you mix that all in, you get egos. On top of long days, fatigue, and then hunger, slippery slopes. I mean, and things just continue to go down a slippery slope because you mix, and then you make fatigue. There's loneliness. I mean, it's all of these things that make people at their weakest, which make people the most insecure. Yeah. And you mix that with ego, and I think it's a breeding ground for it.
It's a great formula.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. I thought about that before this podcast.
And self-aggrandizement, I think also, that's all up in there as well.
Because it's glamorous too.
Glamour, fulfillment, whatever,
Right.
I think it does, I think it can come from a place of really deep insecurity, like that need for constant fulfillment.
Oh, and validation.
Like validation. Yeah, that validation is like a drug. They're just like, stick it in, And that's one way that some of those power dynamics, whenever you have a bunch of bright-eyed newbies, not this flavor of newbie, but like noobs in the industry or greenhorns or whatever, they're like bright-eyed looking at you, and that you can really trip on that drug, and that's disgusting that people take advantage of any of that situation, because it's just it's abhorrent that people do that.
I feel like there is people that definitely take advantage of it, but I feel like I also see people who aren't necessarily taking advantage of it when they're in it. Like it again, you go back into those hours and those fatigues, and you start to watch somebody just kind of slippery. So it's almost like going into like Vegas or something, it's like you just kind of spin out, and then at the end you look back and
they're like, what did I?
And they're like, what I've heard people say that, like, I don't know what was happening in those.
Instead of win in Rome,
almost
win on
like
set.
a bender or something.
Kind of is that way. And if you don't have grounding, if you don't go home to a spouse, or you don't have some type of grounding, it can kind of just go there, especially for young people. I think it's maybe easier. I feel like maybe easier for people like a little older who've been around it, but you get a college kid. Oh my gosh, the film in Sulphur was like full of college kids.
Oh geez.
And every night at the hotel, it was like nuts.
Yeah.
It was crazy because it was like a frat party every night.
Yeah. Well,
Day played on that when I was in the hotel one night, and I was...
Yeah. Well, and I feel like the traveling circus of the film, a film set, the whole, it adds a weird anonymity to, you're in a foreign land, and you're... I think it's kind of that Vegas kind of feel of like,
and suffrage.
Nobody knows who I am. There's no accountability. Yeah. I don't know why I've gone into Trump, but it's appropriate.
Well, you just did.
Win in Rome.
No, I think it is. Yeah.
I mean, I will say on the documentary side, it's not just creeps and crazies within the film community. When we have to shoot, we are this like little bubble of like, we stick out like a sore thumb. So everyone's like, oh, cameras. And they want to be a part of that. And they want that fame or like that,
whatever
like that attention,
is.
Whatever that is, which I have no idea. Because I don't think it's the glamour behind it all is not true.
Because how many actors have been discovered by lurking in the background, looking like a meth addict? They're like, this is my shot.
So like people come up to me all the time when I'm filming, when I'm obviously just like focused on filming, and they're like, oh, so what kind of camera is that? You know what I mean? I'm trying to shoot, and they try to, it's just wanting that fame or whatever attention,
it's validation. It's really for them and not you.
Absolutely.
Which goes back into, that's kind of a different topic, but something that I have learned that is so annoying of like, I get this a lot at car dealerships because I have to shoot commercials at car dealerships. And it happens a lot with extras and people like that. It's they're talking to you not because there's anything to do, it's because they need a girl to respond. They need a pretty girl to respond. So it's I hear the same 6 things of, am I next?
Oh my God.
Can you do anything with this? Can you make me 10 years younger? And it's the same comments.
Oh God.
But at first I used to be really annoyed, but I realized it has nothing to do with me.
No.
Yeah,
It's the
there is a
need-
weird discomfort because I deal with
They
the same
need
thing whenever
that,
I'm
yeah.
wiring people up of like, oh well, you come home with me.
It's the
No,
same
sir,
thing,
I don't
yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's annoying because if you respond negatively, then it's like, well, she's
what a
she's
turd.
bitch. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm like, it has nothing to do with me.
You have
It's
to be
you.
kind.
I feel like
But do you now?
the-
I'm getting over it.
It's so annoying.
Yeah.
It's so annoying.
it's like it's definitely an avenue for people who think that they're unstoppable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, especially if you're in a position where you have lots of money.
Yeah.
And you're a director and you're the boss of 40 people. You know what I mean? And you think that you can do all these things and that you have free reign because you're an artist. And
Right.
so there aren't as many lines to art as there are other.
Be an accountant.
Yeah, exactly. and so you got guys who try to do things that normally wouldn't be like kosher, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But it is okay because they're an artist.
Right.
You know, they're trying.
And
They're trying to connect
Yeah,
with you.
they're
Yeah.
trying to get to you on a whole nother level, so we can get you to where you
Right.
need to be for this scene. You know?
Yeah.
Need any connecting. You know?
Yeah.
you know, okay,
But it's hard because sometimes that does work.
Yeah.
Maybe when it doesn't cross the line or people
right.
question it and then it actually works and then that's what makes a good scene. And I
Yeah.
think you hear stories of that.
Yeah.
And also
almost like
Hollywood
a-
used to be
Glamour.
10 times rough now. I mean, we heard stories about
Yeah.
Judy Garland gets slapped in the face on Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And that she was addicted to drugs because they would just feed her full of cigarettes.
Oh my God.
And so, I mean, we've come a long
Casting
way.
couches.
Yeah.
We've come a long way. So with that, though, a lot of times it's generations of just us thinking that's what you do to get the shot.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no rules because just get the shot.
Yeah.
And we have to
Well, and
change
that's-
that tone.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, and it's one of those things of like, you know, people, you know, the history of Hollywood and all this kind of stuff, and just society as a whole, we've created this weird thing of like, this is quote unquote normal. Like I shit on Stanley Kubrick a lot because I hear stories of the way that he treated his actors and his actresses and stuff, and it was always under the moniker, and every respectable filmmaker that I know loves to make excuses for this guy because that was his process. It was, you know, that's just his method. It shouldn't be. It just shouldn't be.
Find another method and make a good film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should not be driving your actress to the point that she's losing hair and losing her sanity
Oh, wow.
to get your fucking shot.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And if you read behind the scenes stories of Stanley Kubrick on The Shining and
Yeah,
a
it's
couple other
awful.
projects, that guy, man.
There were
Fuck him so
there's
hard.
A lot of
You-
actors who reportedly say, like, you know, they had like, man, I had such a great time working with him. I learned a lot, but I would never do another movie with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like,
that-
Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, threw
Yeah.
birds at Tippi Hedren, like terrorized her. I mean, she didn't act again afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, like that's
gonna be so hard.
a really, I've talked about this before on a podcast, like film analysis stuff, where it's like I remember the two main actresses in Blue is the Warmest Color, which is like a film that has like a really long lesbian love scene in the middle of it, and them talking about their process in doing that and how it was like one of the worst, most awful situations that they've ever been put
Really?
in.
Yeah.
And how they would never work with that director again, and just things like that
Yeah.
where it
But we got
shouldn't-
the shot.
But we got the shot. We made
Yeah.
the art.
And
Like,
it was
at what-
beautiful,
at
and it
what
won awards and won
cost?
Oscars.
At what cost?
Yeah. Well, it's just like, you know, I can't remember who the director was, but there was a film that Marlon Brando was
Yes.
in where the dude's literally raping this actress on camera, and it was just done, but was printed, was edited, and was distributed, and people celebrated the hell out of this thing.
There was another big actor or director that was, oh God, I bet there's people that know. It was Marlon Brando and another, maybe the director
I think it was a
really well
French
known.
director. I
Wasn't
can't remember
really
the name of
well
it.
known,
I think it was
so-
actually a foreign film, but still,
The actress
like,
talked about it later.
we have
Rich.
got. I think it starts there of just we have got to break this concept of normalcy with people having a process and all this bullshit that does not have to exist to get your shot.
Exactly.
Right.
And like,
It's got to be consent.
How
at least,
long-
between the two actors of how far do we want to go together?
Yeah.
Which is another, like I was saying earlier, like how long do you let it happen before you speak up? Because just like recent events that have just been happening in the film industry with a certain someone who has literally been shunned by everyone, university. I mean, his face plastered everywhere.
And it's about time.
How long had he been doing what he'd been doing?
Years.
Yeah, years and years and years before somebody said like, hey man, like...
Well, no, I mean, something that I would want to clear up on that is it was always known and it was brought up. It's been brought up and it's been brought up on Facebook, but multiple times. And I think the only reason it worked this time was because the right person went to the right site, found him posting in his own words at the right time. Because this has been talked about forever, but there wasn't any kind of physical abuse or physical evidence. We just had to get him saying the right thing in his own words because he always denied it before. And from there, it was just creepy rumors.
Yeah.
So really, people were watching that site and watching for him. And I think they were waiting because we had to have some, I say we, like I had anything to do with it, but they waited. Yeah. But it was definitely blasted. I saw it blast on Facebook a year ago, but it just fizzles out because everyone's like, yep, we know he's a creep. Yep.
Yeah.
Moving on, but nobody could do anything.
Let's talk about this particular event real quick. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. So basically, to catch the listeners up on if you haven't heard about this yet, which I'll be shocked if you haven't. But, I don't want to be the one to tell the story. So who wants to tell the actual story of who this guy is and what happened?
I was at the periphery of all of this.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
So John Scameyhorn was an OU professor who was also a teacher and he made lots of donations for the theater program, and he was a film producer and made lots of movies here in Oklahoma for certain specific audiences. So a lot of his movies that he made were going to foreign markets like Thailand, so on and so forth.
Were they? I thought he also just helped with small local films.
And he
was a financier in a lot of theater and a lot of local film.
Yeah. Theater, film,
very small projects.
Small stuff, very, very small stuff. And lots of allegations came up about him with inappropriate behavior on sets, such as filming women secretly in their dressing rooms, taking provocative on-set photos.
Secret cameras on his own sets, which the content of that movie as
I know I read a few articles of girls who had worked for him who he would pretty much take them out on they were dates, but they were like they were working, but they would go to restaurants,
business dinners and stuff
and
they got paid to be at dinner.
Exactly, and he paid them. So and like Toni was saying, is just some stuff had came up on a specific website about a film that he produced. And,
what's the name of the website? Because I honestly...
Return of Kings.
That's right. It's like
a men's rights.
Men's rights
activist
I don't even know if that's right.
thing. It's like incel.
Because it's more than men's rights. It's...
it was like red pill MRAs. Like I'm trying to think of
because I think men's right isn't even the right word. It's aggressively like pro.
Yeah,
it was like professional misogyny or something like that, basically, because like there's a difference between
men's rights,
which is typically around like child, right? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
What's the word?
Having equal rights.
Being able to get your kid.
Yeah.
Is like typically the men's rights
like
issue
out of like a divorce.
Out of a divorce and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Custody.
So calling
custody.
Yay, we got the word.
We got it. We did it.
You're so smart.
Today on Creeper Charades.
But calling it men's rights is almost an insult to men's rights. It's
because this was like misogyny on a level that I've never seen before.
Oh, it's Handmaid's Tale.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they believe that that if we just go back to the way things were, where everybody had a role, that the world would be a better place, and that things started unraveling when women started having rights.
Yeah, could drive and could vote.
And there was like there's proof out there of these perfect societies over the course of thousands of years that were perfect, and they were the most prosperous when men had complete control. And so these men take these particular times in the world, particular like ages of thousands of years or whatever, and say, well, this is when the world was right during this particular era in China or whatever. And so they're like, we need to go back to that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
You know what that
just
would
grabbed
actually-
this screenshot of. I actually didn't even hear this part.
So what he did is, he pitched this whole project as a women's rights rebellion type film.
Like
Went far with it, really pitched it as it was going to be that way, and
strong female characters,
and stuck to it. So of course the film happened, and a lot of people didn't really feel like it was going that route, and it got kind of creepy. And then there was a lot of problems in editing because he wanted certain things edited, and the director and everyone else that got sold the other perception were like, that doesn't work if you're trying to make this movie. And he was like, don't care, I want this movie. And what he was making was a snuff film, a fetish snuff film.
Well, and it turns out that the guy had a stash of pictures on his server that were basically pictures of students at OU that he had secretly taken pictures of. And like, I think
mixed with ropes,
Yeah.
porn, pictures
Yeah.
of heads, like say like our heads are from our Facebook profile cut onto porn images. So
yeah.
but again,
So if
at this
anyone out there
point,
is trying to
no
write a
one is-
horror movie,
Yeah. So at this point, no one's getting physically hurt. There's no letters of threat. So it was always this very like creepy, but
Yeah.
it was.
he said, she said, pretty much.
And
it was very, very frustrating because
technically it was legal at this point. He hadn't done anything except for just be misconduct, and that was the hard part.
that was because I was on that set. I was the sound guy on that set, and the point that you were talking about him trying to creep a camera into the ladies' dressing room, I was there. And we were talking about the ethics of like trying to wire somebody up and that kind of thing. This was like that,
Because they're in risque outfits.
my
too.
thoughts on that were firing on all cylinders. So I had a helper with me. I was trying to wire up these girls that were in, corset situations,
Steampunky.
And this guy kept creeping into the room with his little handy cam. And I was an eyewitness to that. And I reported that to the first AD.
Good.
And they didn't do shit. So then I went to a DHS person, a friend of mine who works in DHS, or she's the only personal friend of mine that I know that's in the authorities, and reported it to her. They couldn't do anything because you can't arrest somebody for being creepy.
Right.
You can only arrest them once they've fucking done something.
Right. And that's
Once
the hard
they've
part.
raped someone. That's the only time that they can apparently do that.
Yeah. And that's sucks. And what was hard is when it all did come out on Facebook, and the rebuttals, or the people trying to be a little less, they didn't support him, but trying to see the other side, they'd say, well, but he didn't hurt anybody. And we're like, so do you want to volunteer to be the first person to get ass rapes for everybody else?
Yeah.
Do you want to
Is
volunteer?
that what, and that's the thing
That's
that
the
I
point.
kept like,
But at the same time,
Lainey and I
either
had
way.
many, many conversations about this guy of just like, is that what it's going to take?
Right.
Is somebody going to have to get
hurt.
fucking hurt
Right.
Yeah,
for
but-
somebody to do something
But
about
what
this
happens
guy?
then is they lose massive donations. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And that was the big reveal out of this whole thing that
God
I didn't know
forbid
about.
that They lose all their
Yeah.
money for the theater program. you
Yeah.
know?
So what they did instead is they just told all the girls, don't do any fittings at his house. Be very careful. Don't be
Yeah.
alone. So all they could do was just. I say all they could do. They could have done more, but we just warned. We all warned.
Absolutely.
And I forgot that I did this. But so when all that came out, I got a call or a text from an actress who I've worked with that texted me and told me thank you, because when that movie, when they were first casting for it, she was going to audition for it. And I guess, I don't remember doing it, but I personally called her and was like, because I know her and she's a little more modest and she's conservative. And I said, I've already read the story. I've already been approached about doing makeup on this film. It's not for you. I'm telling you. And then she was like, why? What's going on? And I told her, I said, I'm just going to tell you the rumors and the stuff I know about him. And this isn't, I'm telling you, it's going to make you really uncomfortable. And so she ended up not auditioning because I told her that.
Good for her.
Completely forgot about that. And then she messaged me, and now she was like, if I would have been part of this project, I would have been completely mortified.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for the actors that
Well,
I didn't get to reach out to, and they're all dealing with it in their own way.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah. Well, and like, I'm trying to figure out a way to lighten the mood off of this, but where do we go from here? I'm curious because, like, at this point, it's happened,
Right.
Absolutely.
and what it took to get him off the grid, basically. Well, not off the grid, but like away.
Right.
He's gone. So, as
And no
far
one
as I
did
can
get-
tell,
Yeah.
he's not coming back anytime soon. And the way that had to happen was an act of God, I guess. Things basically going viral online. So thank God for social media. You won't hear me say that very often. But the question that I keep coming back to is, where do we go from here? Where do we go to heal? Where do we go to keep this from happening again? Because the guy had a lot of money. He was surrounded by red flags, and yet he was able to get away with it for over 5 years.
A little. So I feel like we started the healing process years ago. So even though it wasn't a full public shame like it has been recently, for the most part, not everybody would work with them. Would work with him. So I really was really proud of our community because we did rally together the best way we knew how. A lot of us didn't make personal phone calls. Most females I knew did not work with him, deal with him. And I think that we nipped something in the bud before it really got worse.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
he never got to a level that anybody, as far as we know, that hasn't come out, got physically hurt. Now, the mental and emotional is something that I think everyone will come back from, but I feel like we handled it well. And it's a small enough community that the few people, if there was anybody that has kind of moved in that direction or has made inappropriate things that it hasn't come out yet, I feel like they have definitely gotten scared.
Yeah.
I feel like we've all spoke about it. And there's enough men, and I don't think people talk enough about this, but so many men in the community have made it a point
Absolutely.
to be as vocal about it too, and that's what has helped.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it's something really to be proud of how it was handled.
I kind of want to talk. I want to touch on that a little bit because, like, during the whole Scream Horn thing, whenever it was really starting to blow up, so I was approached by the news to do an interview, and I almost turned them down because in the midst of all this stuff coming out, I was also getting some flack for even trying to speak out about it in the first place.
Really?
Like from women.
Really?
Because it was not my place. That was the perspective that was being given to me, that it was not my place to chime in. It was not my place to,
what were you,
quote unquote, and I'm quoting, steal the spotlight.
what were you chiming? Or was it like articles or what? Just commenting in on the feed?
I honestly can't remember.
I mean, because you were telling, I know some of the posts you did were about like how you tried to go to the authorities before about him, right?
It was a first-hand experience.
And so I almost turned that interview down to the reporter because I didn't want to step on anybody's toes and I didn't want to not stay in my lane. But what made me decide to do that interview was because the reporter replied to me that she's approached several people, both male and female, and every one of them has turned her down. So when given the opportunity to speak up on not a social media platform, people turned her down.
I think we're a polite state. And I think that, not that I want that to change.
I am not polite.
Right.
Not with this. Not with
Rock
this.
on. But I think we're a polite state. We don't want to be involved too much. And so, and I am the most guilty of that, of just riding the fence, trying to stay out of it, keep things like smooth. I don't condone, or I just kind of keep it smooth. And I think that's something we all have to work on. Not that I don't, like I said, want Oklahoma to be harsh, and I don't want us to be big whistleblowers and go the extreme, but it's a balance.
I agree with that.
It's a new area.
I would say that, like, so as far as my experiences with the guys, so like last year they did a movie that I had went and auditioned for, and this I didn't even know who Skinny Horn or any of the people he worked with. I didn't know any of them, and so I went in for an audition, and we read the script. We read the end. First of all, it was at his house, which is like already like don't ever go to auditions at someone's house. Like,
sorry,
like
we'll talk about red flags specifically in a bit, but that's number one.
We read the entire script. And it was there were like just picture packs, just a different film.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of scenes with women, like sex scenes, like dirty stuff against like very misogynistic stuff. And so we finished. And offered me the role, asked me if I wanted to do it. And I was like, yeah, like only if I'm not going to do it unless this is rewritten or this changes. There's no way I'm going to ever do this.
Good for you.
And they immediately were like, yeah, well, no, we're not going to do that because this is the film that we're trying to make. And so I was like, all right, man, well, then I guess I'm not doing it. And I left. And as soon as I left, the first thing that happened was they called me and just blew me up like, oh, you're a motherfucker. Like, you're never going to work in Oklahoma again. I'm going to tell everybody that. Yeah, I mean, like, straight up blowing me up. And y'all guys know me. I was like, you got to keep that P.M.A. like, of course. So I was like, you know, like,
Oh, we're talking about our stories of harassment. That's like a next
Yeah,
level.
well,
I've never been called in.
yeah, they
Yeah.
called me all kinds of like horrible names. Said I would never work in Oklahoma
officially sexually
again.
harassed.
Yeah, so I think that my biggest advice on this specific topic and how to avoid it is, which is probably the hardest thing to do in this business, and it's learn to say no.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times,
freaking men.
when you're in a situation where you're like, oh man, I don't know when my next film gig is. This is a paycheck. This could be my big break. It might not be. Doesn't matter. I'm still going to get paid. Like I'm going to be working on a movie, doing what I love, but I might have to do some things that might, on my moral level, have like a conflict. So I would just say, like, learn to say no.
Yeah.
And you could probably prevent a lot of this type of stuff from happening because, like Toni said, our state is like very, very kind. A lot of kind people. We've had tons of actors say. I mean, Dennis Quaid said that this is the best film sets he's ever worked on. But like, there's got to be a point where you say, okay, I can't. This is too much. This is too far. It's such a hard line to ride because, like you said, you can't baby someone. You can't step in and say no for them.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to do it on your own.
And I mean, and it might come to a situation because they could be all on paper completely sane and normal. It might no auditions at the director's house, you know, on paper it looks good, and then you're locked in and you realize, oh, this isn't what I signed up for, and then you're in a situation. It's like or you're like an actor. You're like, I'm 2 weeks into shooting. I can't quit this.
How do you walk?
How do you walk 2 weeks into shooting?
Yeah, because Neil got to read the whole script. That's not common.
No.
Normally you
No.
have sides, you audition, and then they'll say if there's nudity, they'll do a few disclaimers, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, then you get the script.
Never went to an audition where I got to read the entire script right then.
Yeah.
You audition with like the characters. Most
Usually it's blinders
beefy part.
on the whole way, and you're like,
Right.
oh my God, what film am I in?
Yeah.
You know?
I think for me, kind of the resolution or like the step forward is knowing your worth. Like you were saying, knowing when to say no. Like you are on set for a reason. Film is a collaborative experience. You need those people on set to get this done. There is no one that should be tossed aside because of that, just because they're a PA or at the lowest level. And I think it's thinking of your work or the job that you're on as a safe place. Like we need to start creating these films or these work environments in a safe place mentality. We don't really have like an HR department on set. Like I think that's something, either it's policy or whatever, that needs to be changed or looked at, because you don't want to go to the producer and be like, oh my gosh, I have this bomb to drop on you, like while you're in the middle of set. Like something happened to me. We were like the last day before filming, I went to the producer and nothing was done because they're all over here and they're not there to take care of this problem necessarily.
Right.
So I think
things slip through the cracks all the time, especially with the producers and stuff, because they're trying to make their day.
Yeah.
You know,
And they have to decide how important is this story that you just told me, and is it worth the thousands that's going to happen? Which I'm not saying if they don't do anything, it's not okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But they also have their own dilemma.
Yeah,
Well, and
it's
I feel
not
like
just
that's hard.
It's not just like sexual harassment either. It's racism. It's
little.
discrimination against everyone that could be different than you. And I think that we need to think more and more and more how personally we can make this place safer, a safe place.
Because no one wants the awkwardness of then the producer approaching that person, and then you're like, well, but I still got to work with them, and it's awkward.
Yeah.
It's hard. And I think something too that we have to change is we grow up, women grow up to be, to be people pleasers, and we grow up to be polite. We're also taught with coin phrases like you throw like a girl, or don't be a baby, don't cry like a girl.
Don't be a pussy.
Don't be a pussy. And so you're hearing that
I hear
to
don't be a
boys.
dick a lot.
Don't be a dick. I'm start saying don't be balls.
Don't be those balls.
Or like that grew up hair balls. So we grow up knowing that females are soft and sensitive, and guys are supposed to be big and strong. And then we as females are then taught to then rise above that and don't be like every other girl.
Yeah.
So to then take things too sensitive, it's like what someone's PMSing, someone's on their period, and so then you have this. So you're constantly ingrained with that. And when I've read some of these articles of like what was going on in Hollywood, and a lot of times the women, it really made me think, because a lot of times the women would say, he did this and then I froze. I don't know why, but I froze. And you kept reading that. And then I started thinking, why are you freezing?
Yeah.
And it's because it's a fight or flight. And we as women we're trying to process, because we know that we can't win in a physical fight.
Yeah.
So our reaction is freeze, wait it out, and figure it out. And that's because we're taught to people please. And men are taught to be assertive. You're the ones that walk up to the girl at the bar. You're the ones that buy the drink. You're the one that takes the stand. So we have to, that's a dialogue. It's a whole
And I
different
feel like
field.
I want to, like, the reason why I was pointing out earlier about how the reporter came to me and that kind of thing, the point that I was going to make with that was that I feel like men have got to be a part of the conversation. But beyond that, men have got to... God designed us to be protectors, for a reason. And if we do not protect, not that you need it, but it would be really nice if we could chime in.
I mean, it's
ingrained
allyship.
in you.
It's allyship.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
we've got to be team players
Absolutely.
And
here.
it's not just men either. It's people
Yeah.
who need to be allies.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, everyone.
I am so thankful because I am so lucky and thankful. The first words I ever heard about John Scamey Horn in my freaking life were from a man, and he was saying, "Stay away from him."
Yeah.
And I only met him in person twice, and I kept probably a 60-foot perimeter around him.
Yeah.
How long? And that was years ago.
Yeah, that was like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I am so thankful. And like, and I consider myself lucky that I had someone that cared about me that much to warn me about such a predator as he.
Yeah.
And so, but there are people in our community that aren't as lucky as that.
Yeah.
And so that's why we all, it takes a village kind of mentality. We have to be that for others as well. Because other people, they're not as lucky.
Yeah. Well, and I also challenge the men that are listening to this that if you need to physically step in and be a physical barrier, that's okay.
Say something.
Yeah. I think that happened.
If you
on
need to
PAX as
physically
well.
defend someone, that's okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think that happened on PAX as well. I think I remember hearing actors later saying that they would kind of do that with the camera situation, and then they would just kind of stand in the shot with the behind the scenes camera. So I think it's out there. It's happening. I think we just have to be more. People just have to be more comfortable to do that. Yeah,
and to talk about it.
yeah. I think, but I think as community we're doing really well, and I hope that I think it's going to get better. And I don't know if this is a topic that you have about. I know that some people are afraid if this is going to hurt the film incentive, but I think that this is, proving that we're actually a lot stronger than what people think we are. And if we're talking dollars, like, not a lot of money went to him back as film incentive wise.
Yeah.
Like, he really,
Well, and
really
also,
not.
I mean,
this
like,
was not a Weinstein situation where he won
his
millions.
films that he
we're
made
talking
were-
very, very small. I mean, we're very fortunate
He was not
to
a
have had
profitable
something.
man. I don't know. I still don't understand the motivation behind it financially.
from what I
Like,
understand
I understand it mentally, and like the
Right.
guy was a very much.
I don't know.
There's several
What they
layers of
told
creep
me
there.
From like going in and auditioning for a film that they were doing was the idea that they make 5 films a year. Like we're gonna make 5, 6, 7 films this year, and if you're in with us, we'll make sure you get to act in all of them. And then you say, hey, well, then what are you gonna do with these films? What happens to them? Why are you making so many? Well, their plan was to send them to these markets where that kind of thing is they love it. You know what I mean? They buy it up, so they send it to a foreign market where. Like maybe it doesn't like anywhere.
Laws are different.
Yeah, exactly. Like Cambodia or Thailand or Vietnam or wherever, where these kind of things are something that could be popular, that people are into, and then they make their money that way, which just gives them just barely enough money to have funding for their next one.
Yeah.
So it's like a never-ending process
more of
of
a
just
hobby.
more and more and more.
Right.
Yeah,
films.
well, and that's the frustrating thing is the way that like some people have claimed that it profited off of the film rebate, like
Not really.
because there was a guy that was saying that like, or what group is it?
OCPA.
The OCPA. Yeah, they got it. They're hell bent on taking out the freaking film rebate. I don't know why, because what they're saying is not factually correct.
No.
You don't make loads of money off of Oklahoma tax dollars through the rebate. If you look at the definition of rebate in a fancy little dictionary, you'll see that you have to invest money and then eventually you get some back.
Yes.
Right.
That's how rebates work. OCPA.
Rebate.
First you have to bait, then you are rebated.
Yeah.
Okay, so last thing, because we've gone a little bit over, just a tad,
well.
but it's okay because this is
about some real stuff.
this is some real.
This is like, and this is a perfect platform
real.
for it.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go around the room and let's just name a red flag. I'll start. An audition that's held in a hotel room.
Oof.
That's a red flag.
Red flag.
No permits for the drone. That's a red flag.
That's a red flag. And
That's a red
also
flag.
against the FAA regulations.
Yes, it is, especially on
You can be arrested for that.
especially on a national park.
Red flag for an actor, for crew, for all of it.
Anybody,
Everything.
anything.
Everything.
I think this is more of a makeup thing. A red flag for me is, I don't even know if it's a red flag. That shit crappy. It's like really means it's just real low budget. Is when you throw out a really vague thing that you need for the film, and then you ask me my rate and what my supply budget would be. If you're needing me to provide a number, you're telling me you're not going to have that number because you're not giving. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if the information is really almost in weird order as to when you're approaching me, that's when it's real weird for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know it's kind of odd, right? I know that's not a normal red flag.
Yeah.
I think also. This sounds weird too, is for new actors, when you're reading the emails and the messaging, if they're skipping a lot of steps and wanting to jump right to an audition or right to a fitting or right to this, and you're not really getting the other pieces of information, that's a red flag. Because you're wanting to do the fun stuff first.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I want to be pretty and have an outfit.
Exactly.
nice,
And
yeah.
so you're skipping ahead to the creative stuff when you haven't figured out the other stuff. That's normally a flag that it's bogus and that there's another agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, with documentaries, we are sent out a lot, sometimes by yourself if you're shooting by yourself. And so that is a red flag for me if someone's like, hey, go to this place, not really sure what's going on, but you need to film it. So
Yeah. Joe Exotic might pop out of the bushes.
yeah, it's like you have a very vague idea of what's happening and you're sent out to a foreign area.
Yeah, you gotta get info.
Yeah, I think communication, obviously.
And maybe that's it. I think that's the overall thing is communication. It's okay to ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask so many questions.
Neil, what do you think?
Red flag.
As an actor, do you want to? Well, you've done every position there is.
actor.
Yeah.
Red
So
flag as an actor.
I was going to talk from an actor's point of view, and I would say that as far as acting goes, red flags are, for me at least, is like I said, one, don't ever audition at someone's house, and let's see what else. Like the Skamehorn stuff. If you're in a changing room and you're trying to be by yourself, or if you have a wardrobe person who you're comfortable with, because I've worked with wardrobe people who are they need to assist you in some way, that's okay. But if you got people who are in there who are being weird and you don't like it, speak up. That's a red flag.
Yep.
Because a lot of times the changing room is the holding room.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another red flag. Let's say having a, and this is I don't even know if this is a red flag, but it is for me. Having a director try to convince you to do things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
I think that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Yuck.
So
Well, and I think
not
that there's
necessarily in such a bad way, but once you've decided that you're not going to do something and they're like, oh, well, this is kind of how we write the scene and this is what we need. And it's like, look, man, I'm not going to do that. So as far as an actor, like I said, learn how to say no and be firm with what you will do and what you won't do. And don't audition for things that you won't do. Yeah. Because I've heard plenty of stories from actors and actresses alike who I know there's a film in it, because I've done nudity in films before. I've worked on films where I've had to do nudity, like Blueberry Hall. And as an actor, and when you go in, you know that that's what's going to happen. So you go in with that mindset that that's what you're going to do, and that's how it's going to happen. And it's really not cool to say, yeah, I went in an audition and I got the part and everything, and then you show up on set and 30 minutes before you're supposed to film, she's like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be naked. I'm not going to be naked on camera.
Right.
So just watch out for who you cast.
Yeah.
And, you know, watch out for people who are trying to tell you to do things you don't want.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, with with A-list actors, you got writers and all kinds of stuff for nudity. But for like people that maybe, you know, I see the calls in like Freihofer where it's like Freihofer's casting blasts where, you know, it'll be like nudity is, you know, required for this role, 18 plus, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, that kind of thing, I feel like they'd can you like instantly. If you auditioned with that intention and you show up on set and you're not ready to do the thing that you were hired to do, then like there's probably like 5 people that, I mean, that's something of definitely like agreeing with Neil, like know thyself, like that's all about your personal boundaries.
Know
like,
thyself.
If you're not prepared, then don't do it.
Another red flag for an actor.
Another red flag from Neil Newby.
Red flag?
Yeah.
Experience a lot of red flag.
Watch out for the casting calls on Facebook.
Oof.
Watch out for casting calls on Facebook. Watch out for
Craigslist.
casting calls on Craigslist.
Oh,
Scary.
yeah.
If it's not an actual person who is like a casting director,
Yeah.
don't do it. Unless you know the person.
I've got a red flag for your red flag.
Ooh.
If you see a casting call and then you look to see, like what I always do is I tend to look at the director or the producer or something like that. I do a little Facebook creeping.
Yeah.
If
And
the
IMDb
Facebook profile of the people that are running the show, they look like fucking methed out hobbits,
What is this?
No.
it might be a red flag.
They have giant hairy feet. Right
Yeah.
away.
If the guy looks like a cracked out wicket on his profile picture, which is the one that's usually used so that you look your
favorite.
best.
Yeah. Best photo ever.
Yeah. If that's his best,
Yeah.
what the hell is his worst?
Tell you- wait, I got a
red flag. Any producer that fucks around with overtime, like I mean, and like in
yeah.
That's
definitely
too late.
union,
At that point when it's
but
too late.
like, but yeah,
That's not a red flag. You're already in. the
you're
storm.
already in the shit.
Okay,
Yeah.
wait. I've got a good red flag, and this doesn't mean it's a 100% this way. So that's why it's just a flag. It's just be wary of it.
Casual flag.
Casual flag.
Casual flag on the play.
Especially with small stuff. So people are hired somewhat in a particular order. You know, producer, directors, writers, you normally do department heads and you work your way down, right? Mm-hmm. Actors, sometimes early, sometimes not. So if you feel like you're a crew member that doesn't need a lot of pre-pro, you're a sound guy, or you're an extra in a small part, and you're getting hit up when, again, I was saying earlier, not the rest of the information's been figured out, and they're skipping steps, that's normally a flag, right? Something else, and I don't mean to insult people that are doing small stuff, but if you look at the list, the crew list or the IMDb, and the same name as the writer, the director, the producer, and the actor, and it's not a documentary. No, documentary is different. If it's not a documentary, if it's a narrative story, that doesn't mean that that's wrong. You could be Tyler Perry, like, do you? But it normally means just get a little more information, because that means that it hasn't maybe got to the point. Now, unless you're a production designer or something, and you're going to make the thing. So instead, I'm not trying to insult.
If your movie is called The Room and your name is Tommy Wiseau, that is a red flag.
Right.
It's not a bad negative. It just means
it's a casual watch out.
just know that it's small enough that you just be aware that they don't have all the details and just wait.
Yeah,
Documentary aside, because that's a totally different beast. That's a totally different beast.
Right.
But a narrative story normally involves a ton of people on the top of above the line. And if you're a below the line crew and you're a sound guy getting called 2 months in advance, and there's maybe 3 guys on the whole thing, and they're the writers, the directors, and the producers and everything. Know that it's probably low budget.
I don't fuck with that shit no more.
Yeah. And I only say that because normally we get messaged about stuff.
We get
really
called on
early
a lot of the same stuff, and it's
really small.
It's a hoot.
Yeah.
And you never want to turn anything down right away. You want to give it benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, you don't want to be a dick.
I've been wrong. I've been like, this looks like a joke. And then you just see that they just do their process differently. And you're like, all right, it's fun.
What's nice is whenever it's a total shit show, but you're the only 2 people getting paid full rate, and you're like, yes!
My kid fee and my full rate.
I shall look down upon the madness.
So I've learned I actually have turned down a few of those, where if I am the only person getting paid, I'm the makeup artist, I know that there's another agenda.
Yeah.
Or if there's not, I say to them, like, you know, you get full of the compliments or you're a pro and want to take care, you know, whatever, smoke up your ass kind of thing. But I've learned that I will say, you know, I don't feel like that's fair if I'm the only person getting paid in my position. I'm not a producer. And then I pass them off to like a makeup artist that's wanting to up and come and be a student.
Yeah.
But normally I feel like,
well, and also
they're
guilt
just
by
gonna
association. There's something to be said about guilt by association, because if you work on something, you know, if you compromise your own ethics and your own morals, which, by the way, if you don't have any, you should find some.
get a book.
Figure it out. But like, if you do that and you work on a project that turns out to be another Pax Masculina, guilt by association happens. You know, regardless of whether or not it's founded sometimes, you know. But I feel like there was some collateral damage through the whole John Skimhorn thing.
I think that was hard though, because I think everybody got paid on that, and everyone I think got paid well.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the tough part was.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people involved that were all local film, and a lot of producers. There were a lot of people we all knew that were legit people that we were like, well, he's weird, but I love all these other people, and I think that's what made it. Yeah. That was a tough one. It was a good lesson for everybody.
So and I think you know, your associations are a big deal. Your you know, your name has weight. Again, I'm talking directly to you listeners. Yes. Your name has weight. Even if you're a nobody, eventually, hopefully,
it's credibility.
You will be somebody.
Yeah.
And your name has weight. Who you are has weight.
Well, hold on now. You're not nobody. You're a somebody too.
Don't listen to Neil. But value yourself.
Yeah.
In all aspects of life, value yourself. Understand the weight that your name and your likeness has, because you only have one life. You only get it once. We live in the social media world. You don't get to escape and run off to some other place.
Not anymore.
We'll find you.
Delete your profile.
But also value others.
Well, yeah.
Ooh, good.
Value yourself, value others. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yes, that's awesome.
Respect.
Yeah. Like, so I definitely taken work when it felt kind of sketch, but then I saw people involved that I knew, and then I called them up and was like, hey, what do you know?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, it's cool. And I get the same phone calls. I get them probably more now recently, and I've learned that my name carries more weight now. They're like, well, if Tony's on it, then I'm on it. And I'm like, ooh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let me double check and make sure I'm on it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to end this on a super funny note.
Great.
I don't, you know what? Honestly, I don't think we should. I think we should end it just like that. I think that's a good, nice period to put on this episode.
Yeah.
We don't need to
Name
have,
carries weight.
R-E-S-P-C-T.
How about, hey, Brian.
Hey, Neil.
What's a pirate's favorite letter?
Yar!
No. 'Tis the sea.
God damn it.
Got him.
That's the end, folks.
Well, and on that note, we'll see you guys the next 2 weeks. Bye.
Show.